ghosts, demons, the devil, hauntings, possession, and exorcism. We've all read the books and seen the special effects-laden motion pictures with big Hollywood budgets. But are there any facts behind the fiction? Spoiler alert. The answer is yes. People the world over, of all ages, races, persuasions, and creeds, have had experiences that can only be described as beyond natural explanation. In this video series, we will attempt to pull back the curtain on all things paranormal and preternatural. You'll hear from religious leaders, many of them seasoned exorcists, who go to battle on a daily basis with true evil. They face these terrifying powers in ways that most of us thankfully never will. The wisdom and experience that these men of God have gathered in their respective fields are a treasure trove of information about the machinations of evil, and how we can protect ourselves and our families from them. Join us as we plumb the depths of the reality of evil in the modern world. In today's world, many moral lines have become blurred. Whether it be apostasy within the church, or occultism and immorality in the world, evil is ever present. While we may have different ideas of what evil is, we all know that it exists. The difference in opinion comes into play when you ask the question, what is it? Atheists and agnostics will tell you evil is a human condition, bad things done by bad people. Those of us spiritually minded know that it's much more than that. Evil is real. The source of it is a real, tangible entity, personified in what we believers in Jesus Christ call Satan, or the devil. So what, or more specifically, who is the devil? In the beginning, before the formation of the earth, and the creation of man and the beasts of the earth, God created the heavenly host, angelic beings, created to serve him in managing creation. The greatest of these beings was known as Lucifer. The name Lucifer means light bearer. Lucifer was the highest and most beautiful of all the heavenly host. He was created perfect in all his ways. Be that as it may, he soon fell and became the first enemy of both God and man. The prophet Ezekiel tells us who Lucifer was and what his station was in the heavenly realm before his fall.
Ezekiel chapter 28, verses 14 and 15. Thou art the anointed cherub that covereth, and I have set thee so. Thou was upon the holy mountain of God. Thou hast walked up and down in the midst of the stones of fire. Thou wert perfect in thy ways from the day that thou wert created, till iniquity was found in thee.
Lucifer's fall was the beginning of all evil. The Bible tells us that when he fell, he took 1/3 of the angels with him. These fallen angels under Satan's command are the spirits that we now call demons. But why would the most brilliant angelic creation and those who followed him in his rebellion make the decision to rebel against his creator? Let us gain a little insight from Father John Farao.
It's kind of important to understand what God did at the very beginning. So in that moment, in the very first created moment, he created the angels. In that instance of creation, they didn't have to learn the way we learn. Their intellect is much deeper than ours. And basically, he presented his plan that one day, God is going to be born human, is going to suffer and die. Lucifer, the light bearer, considered it to be the closest thing to God, said, God, you know, if you're going to be somebody, if your son is going to be born, he should be born an angel, closest thing to you. This human people, you blow some breath of life into dirt, very unbecoming. But where Lucifer really kind of loses it is, I refuse to have an earth person, my queen in heaven. That I, as an angel, am going to have to answer to a human queen. Very prideful. That I'm going to take direction from a human being. No, God, I take direction from you because you be God. Anything less than you, I'm above them. So there's this huge battle that takes place, and then they're evicted by St. Michael, the great warring angel. Passage tells us they get sent down to earth. They were made for heaven. Their essence feels at home there, nowhere else. And because of their disobedience, they cannot stay. Because they knew exactly the choice. See, like you and I, we beg God, God, that was a bad day. I wasn't really thinking when I did that. Please forgive me. Go to confession. God's very generous that way. But angels know exactly the consequence of every action. They don't have bad days. I wasn't awake yet. I was not thinking clearly. How could I have said that? Angels don't have those human limitations. They knew when they would say no to God, that yes, this is going to mean banishment for eternity. So there's this big fight that goes on in heaven, and they are cast from heaven to earth. We believe about a third of the angels fell. There's a passage that talks about the dragon sweeps his tail, and about a third of the stars fall from the heavens. It's not like they want to go back. They can't. Angels don't change their mind the way humans do. I have seen exorcisms where a demon is present and the person commands the demon to answer a question, just like, I don't want to go back. I don't want to live by his rules. I refuse. So angels become demons because they don't serve the Lord anymore. They serve Lucifer, and he took a big crowd with him. Now, how many of you have heard stories or have experienced the jilted lover effect? That somebody breaks up with someone and they can't leave the other person alone. They're always messing around with whatever next person they date. Because they were the best thing since sliced bread, so why would this person be dating somebody else? So the devil is furious that you and I have an opportunity for life everlasting in God's presence. And he can't go back. His very being and essence is made to be there. He yearns to be there, but there's no way back. And then he looks at us, little earth creatures, that God's blown a little bit of eternal life into him. And you get to go there? Oh, no. I'm going to do whatever I can to mess you up so you got no way to go over there. Because you're not sitting in my chair, okay? You are not sitting in my chair in heaven. I'm going to mess with you your whole life to make sure that don't happen. So the first day you were born, you had an enemy. A spiritual enemy. But I hate to say sometimes we don't teach you. He's there. Love to throw obstacles under your feet. Love to see you slip and fall. So you would end up with him in hell as opposed to eternity with God.
As you heard in the clip, Lucifer's pride and jealousy was his downfall. Drawing 1/3 of the angelic host with him, he was cast down to earth where he will remain until Christ returns. This is the origin of all evil in the world. While Christ's victory was ensured at the cross, the battle still rages on today. We will not see the final victory until the day of judgment, when Satan and his army of fallen angels are cast into the lake of fire. Until then, we must endure their attacks daily. So then, how is it that Satan and the demons attack us? According to the theologians, there are two main ways that they affect us. The first manner of attack is known as the ordinary activity of demons, and is primarily composed of temptation. The second manner of attack is a little more complicated, and is known as the extraordinary activity of demons. This manner of attack manifests itself in mainly 4 different forms: infestation, oppression, also sometimes called vexation, obsession, and the most visceral and terrifying of them all, possession. In order to learn more about these different forms of diabolic activity, let us hear from one of the most brilliant theologians of the modern age, renowned exorcist, Father Chad Ripperger.
One of the biggest or most unfortunate things among a lot of Catholics is they like to reach a certain plateau where they're staying out of mortal sin. They might have a few venial sins they're struggling with. They feel comfortable in their spiritual life. They might be going to Mass regularly. They're receiving the sacraments, and life just seems kind of comfy, and they don't have to. And they know that in order to eradicate those last imperfections in their life, there's going to have to be a lot of suffering and a lot of self-denial, and so they shy away from it. Demons don't let you do that. God allows them into your life precisely to drag you one way or the other. Obviously, God allows demons in our lives, not so much that He wants them, but He allows them in our lives in order so that we can grow in virtue. We become the instrument of their humiliation. We become the instrument of their justice. See, when Adam ate the fruit and Eve ate the fruit, God said to the serpent, which is another name for Satan, He said to him, "Because you have done this, you will crawl on the ground all the days of your life and eat dust." Now, the crawling on the ground means this, that he will be constantly humiliated. Beelzebub, which is another name for Satan, actually admitted to me once that God the Father actually goes out of his way to set him up to get humiliated. Why? Because it's his just punishment, because his sin was pride. So he actually goes out of his way to humiliate them. The second thing is, so that's he's going to crawl on the ground all the days of his life and eat dust. And then the fathers of the church ask them, "What's this dust?" And then they simply make the reply, "Memento homo quia pulvis es," which is the Latin for "Remember, man, that thou art dust." What that means is that the demons are now stuck with us. They hate us. They don't want anything to do with us, but now they are stuck with us. And essentially, because Satan caused our fall, he is now stuck dealing with us, tempting us, doing those things, which, by the way, it's true he gets a sadistic delight out of seeing us fall and us to see commit sin. But he has also admitted to me that one of the things that happens is every time he gets someone to fall, there is an increase in his shame. So that in point and fact, every time he gets us to fall, his suffering increases. And this is part of God's punishment, and we become the instrument of his punishment, instrument of justice, by denying him and by combating him. Okay, so what are the levels of spiritual warfare? Well, the most elementary level is ordinary temptation. All of us suffer from it. And ordinary temptation essentially occurs in this way. The demons actually can introduce into our imagination images. Now, they can't create images of things that we've never seen before. They can take parts of those things in our memory and put them together in order to create different images. But they can't say, as St. Thomas says, they can't make a blind man see color or imagine color. They have to use something that's already there. In temptation, there's a variety of different levels. Temptation can come in very, very subtle forms, even in forms where it appears good. Hey, you should just go mention to so-and-so about, how wonderful you think their grass, how well they've done with their grass this year. You walk over, you say to the person, you did such a wonderful job with your grass this year, and the next thing you know, the guy's biting your head off. And you're like, where did that come from? Right? And the reason being is because why? Because his wife was just chewing him out because he spent too much time on his grass. Right? Okay, so what does this mean? It means the demons can be permitted in spiritual warfare to suggest even good things to good people to cause damage. All right. Then the next level is oppression. This next level of diabolic influence or spiritual warfare, oppression, is where the demons attack you from the outside. This is when they attack your relationships, your finances, they attack your property, sometimes your health, things of that sort. Right? So there's curses, which is a kind of a higher form of oppression, but there's kind of curses. And the curses are basically designed to influence people in the negative. But the oppression can be in a variety of different ways. Now, there's a twofold distinction in relationship to oppression. There's indirect oppression, and there's direct oppression. Direct oppression is when they actually attack your particular life. They attack you, your health, your relationships, your finances, how things are operating within your home, etc. So they attack you directly. But then there's a certain level of spiritual warfare that all of us deal with where we have to deal with the indirect fallout from oppression. This is when things like politicians and things like that, who are under the influence of the diabolic, who do essentially evil things. Let's cut to the chase. We are not living in a political atmosphere where there are differences of ideas. We are living in a political atmosphere where it's good on one side and evil on another. It's not a matter of differences of ideas. The ideas that they throw out are just to promote their evil. It's that simple. If you cut to the chase of it and get down to the bottom of it, there's certain people that are just nefarious. They're just doing evil things. And how do you know this? Every single thing they do maximizes damage within the context of what they're able to do. This is the type of thing that actually ends up affecting us. It is not rocket science. In fact, it's stuff that you can actually read about right on the internet, that there are actual politicians, international politicians, and even some in this country who are actually involved in Satanism and witchcraft. It's not rocket science. And you can tell it by the stuff that they do. Okay, I'm not going to name names. I can see it now. It'll be all over the newspapers. But the point being is that we have to recognize that this indirect oppression that we suffer is when other people do evil things to get demons involved in culture, in society, in the church. It's not a rocket science to see that there's a fundamental problem with evil in the church right now. But one of the ways that we're dealing with this indirectly, and this is why we have to part of our spiritual warfare, one of the lower levels is just doing our part to help culture, to help the politics, to help the society, in relationship to how we vote and what we do, etc., what we support, etc. Those are the things that we must do in order to combat the diabolic influence. And that's just all at the level of oppression. Then there's diabolic obsession. Diabolic obsession is when they actually attack the person psychologically. That is, by besieging their imagination to such a degree that the person cannot think outside the box. That is, they cannot think outside of fear or lust or anger or things of this sort. And how do you tell that between that and something that's psychological? When it's psychological, it's pretty consistent because it's a habit, right? So it's an intellectual vice, which is basically what mental illness is. It's an intellectual vice, unless it's caused by an organic cause, something psychiatric. But it's very consistent, and it's set on or off by external stimulus. Somebody says something mean to you, and then you react in anger. That's psychological. Whereas when it's diabolic obsession, just switches on and switches off, and there's no external stimulus that indicates that it's there. One of the ways that you can notice it is in people is they go to confession, and all of a sudden it's gone. It seems it so. And then after 3 or 4 days or more, it sets back in. And this can be about any kind of particular sin. In relationship to that, so there's some people are allowed. Why does God allow them into their lives? Sometimes it is actually, as I mentioned, it's obviously because he wants them to become holier through the process. The reason I'm going into this is that God will allow demons into people's lives sometimes to punish them. It's not too common. And usually it's because the person has made the decision that they are not going to get their act together. I'm not going to change. Therefore, I want this sin. I want this to happen. And so God will allow the demon into their life to afflict them, to show them what the true punishment is. He's literally giving them what is the product of their sin. What most people don't realize is that the proper effect of every mortal sin, the proper effect of every mortal sin is possession. So then people ask, well, wait a minute. Even I have said that the number of people that are possessed, we usually vet somewhere between 600 and 800 people a year, the society that I'm in, for diabolic influence. And out of that 600 to 800, only 3 on average, 2 or 3 a year are possessed. So you're talking about a very much less than 0.5%. So, but all these people are committing mortal sins today. You see that in the culture. And so, why isn't it that so many people are possessed? Because it's very simple. It goes back to the principle. God controls the demons, not us. So even when we open up the door, it's up to God to determine whether he's going to allow the demon to step through the door, whether it's going to be good for them or not, ultimately. Sometimes he does allow it, but very rarely, does he allow the demon into the person's life as a punishment. But part of it is to clue the person in. Look, this is what you've chosen. This is what you wanted. And this is the effect of your sin.
So there you have it. Evil came into the world through a succession of events, beginning with the fall of Satan and 1/3 of the angels. Because Satan and his demons can never return to their heavenly home, and yet we, the reason for his rebellion, are now allowed an opportunity to take their place in heaven. We are the object of his hatred. He doesn't want to be in the presence of God, but neither can he tolerate the idea of humans being there in his place. For this reason, the devil and his armies are constantly attacking us, doing everything in their power to keep us from achieving our place in heaven. This hatred for both God and man set off a never-ending war between God and Satan, the spoils of which are our very souls. In our next episode, we'll take a deep dive into the first level of extraordinary diabolic activity: infestation. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so that you can get notified as soon as episode 2 drops. Thanks for watching. See you next time.